Hey guys, welcome back to a special edition episode of Sarcastic Remarks. Alongside Chris and James, my name is Ryan. We are the official podcast of THPN for the Dallas Stars. Please go and use that promo code THPN the next time you use Raycon and also the next time you use DraftKings Sportsbook. We thank them for being our sponsors of this episode of this podcast and all of THPN. James is purposely being as loud as possible as he opens his saltines. So
Struggling.
that's how you know. Yeah, and struggling mightily, I should say. But I mean, that's how you know that we're happy. James is having problems with his saltines. So we have got a ton of. I can't do it.
James, I can't either.
I'm
Oh
done,
my
I'm done,
goodness.
I'm done.
Everyone has already left.
This is like, is Ryan screwing up the audio quality
I'm
again?
here this time, so I have to mess with y'all.
Right. Well, you know who else got messed with is the freaking Minnesota Wild, James. Oh, it was awesome. But anyways, before we get into the episode tonight, I want to do a special shout out to one of my best friends. He got married just yesterday on Sunday afternoon. His name is Garrett. He got married to his lovely fiance, who is now his wife, Rachel. They're just incredible people, and I love them to death. And that's where I was all weekend. So I was very happy that the Stars finished it in 6 rather than having to go to Game 7. Because if it had been Game 7, I would not have been watching Game 7. So, anyways, let's talk about what we're going to talk about here today, guys. We're going to get into the first round. The first round is literally ending as we talk. Right now, at the time of this recording, the Devils are up 2-0 in the second intermission over the New York Rangers. So that will be very interesting to see how that game ends. I'm sure that those of you that are listening to this afterwards already know what the result is, but we're going to be keeping track of that as we go. And we'll talk about each of the first round series just very briefly because there's a lot to talk about. Oh my goodness, this was one of the most bizarre first rounds we've had in a very long time. We're going to get specifically into the Stars and Kraken series, and then if we have some time, we'll look a little bit at some of the other series. But we also have to jump off pretty quick here because we got to go and do a joint episode with the Kraken pod of THBN. You know, I'm just gonna say this just flat out off the top. Kraken fans are so much nicer than Minnesota Wild fans. I mean, I know that was a joke across Twitter and across social media, but like it's an actual thing. Like I am not gonna be like upset. Like, well, I will be upset. I take that back. But like, I will not be super upset if we lose to the Kraken because they're just genuinely nice people, right? Have you gotten that vibe from Kraken fans?
It's crazy what happens when you don't gatekeep the sport. People like you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh man. Well, before we get in any further, I want to get James's thoughts on the whole series against the Minnesota Wild in general, because he was not able to be with us on Friday night. So, James, I'll just go ahead and start with the question that I answered myself and that I also gave to Chris. But for you, what was the either a defining moment in the series, or what was the biggest difference for you in the Minnesota Dallas Stars series?
Y'all were talking about like later games for turning point in the series and stuff. I honestly thought the turning point happened in game 1. It happened in game 1. It was the Pavs hit. That was the turning point for me. I think if Pavelski doesn't get blown up and he's out of the series, then this series is probably a walk in the park, honestly. But that really brought us to be more physical like they wanted us to be. And it really brought us into their game, and they got a couple of games off of us from us doing that. But once we got back to how we normally play, which Otter was the reason why we got back to how we normally play. I mean, we rolled the rest of the way. It wasn't even a competition.
Yeah. So Chris, let's just remind everybody, what was your biggest difference or your biggest defining moment of the series for you?
Mine was the save that Otter made in game 4 and the dying embers, the big stop there. I mean, that really solidified what James said. That was kind of the turning point for the Stars, was that big save, and that from that point on, they couldn't get Otter. They had one goal on him the rest of the series.
Yeah.
I was very similar, although I kind of talked about Game 4 in general. Just all of Game 4 was, if you don't have Ottinger in net, then I don't know I don't know how Game 4 goes, to be honest with you, because Minnesota was the better team. We just had a guy who was standing on his head and levitating at the same time. So it's very convenient that we had a Otter in net for the Dallas Stars. So, is there anything else we need to discuss about that series? James, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you think we need to make mention of?
Not that I can remember. I mean, y'all talked about Johnston getting the game-winning goal in the last game, which was crazy important for him because he was shooting like crazy and it just wasn't going in. But I think he had the most shots out of any rookie in the playoffs. So,
well, he really needs to get going. He really needs to get going. I think he can be a very big difference maker for the Stars in this next series, which we'll talk about here in a little bit.
I mean, if he's making Dodonov score like Dodonov did in the first round, then I don't think it matters.
Yeah. And what Chris and I really talked about, James, is that there were multiple players that stepped up in just different games. And like everybody stepped up at the right time when we needed something. Otter stepped up in Game 4. Sagan stepped up in Game 4. When we needed a hat trick in Game 2, when it came to Rope Hintz, he stepped up. When there were some really big penalty kills that we needed to have done in Game 6, Radek Faksa was there. Ty Dellandrea was really good in Game 5. Was there someone that we need to sing the praises of a little bit more that you can think of?
Not off the top of my head, really, other than Jim Neal, because we had 9 even strength goals. 5 of them are from players who we didn't have on our roster last year. Dodonov had 3 and Marchment had 2.
That is crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And that's a good point. We'll mention it one more time, but Suter was probably like the folk hero of that first round series just because of his connection to Minnesota and how well he played in that series. That's the best hockey I think we've seen him play as a member of the Dallas Stars. He had more points than Kirill Kaprizov. Thank you, James, for that stat.
You're welcome.
But I mean, either one of y'all can chime in on this, and then we'll move on from this. But talk about how important Suter was in that first round series for the Dallas Stars. What was something that really kind of set him apart from the other 4 defensemen on that forward group, on that defensive core?
I don't know that anything set him apart. I think he just started playing good defense. I think he fit in the group, and I think we're throwing him up top because of how much Minnesota hated him. I mean, it wasn't like he played amazing. He just played solid lockdown defense like we expect from him, and that we didn't see very much for the entirety of the regular season.
Well, I think a large part of that has to do with Minnesota just not being fast. I mean, once we get to faster teams, he's going to get burned all the time. I mean, I feel like he's going to get right back to that bad defensive style. I just think he's able... He plays very positionally because he has to, because he's not fast. He's very slow. But with Minnesota, he didn't really have to worry about that. They didn't have anyone besides like Kaprizov maybe that could have skated around him.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into some of these series, you guys. Holy smokes, the first round. I think my bracket is completely shot. I didn't even bother going back and trying to figure out how bad we did. I just know that we all did very badly, like very badly.
Let's just say if the Rangers lose, I didn't even go 50%.
Well, so let's just go with some of the lesser, more talked about series. Let's talk about the Oilers and the Kings real quick. So the Oilers do end up taking care of business. They're the higher seed over the Los Angeles Kings, and they do win the series by a final 4-2. For me, I believe I had the Kings winning that series. I don't know about you guys. Who did y'all have winning that series, if you remember?
I had Edmonton. It was a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. For a 6-game series, it was very close in my opinion, but Yeah, I had it at 10.
I had the Kings. I thought that series was over once McDavid found out how to get away from the Kings. I mean, they kept him locked down in the first 3 games, and then he got out of it somehow. I don't know what he did, but he started picking up lots of points, and that series was over.
And then in the opposite series in that same bracket, you had the Vegas Golden Knights and the Winnipeg Jets. And boy, do we need to discuss the Winnipeg Jets because, wow. So they win it in 5 games, which is not a
Like I
huge
called.
surprise. I think we all either said like 4 or 5.
No, I took the Jets.
Oh, you did
Yeah.
take the Jets?
Yeah, that was
He
my
did take the
upset.
Jets.
Oh boy, wasn't that
There was a bunch of
bad pick?
upsets, and I got it wrong.
So obviously the biggest storyline coming out of this series is not even the fact that Vegas played really well. It's the comments made by former Dallas Stars coach Rick Bowness after the game, after game 5, and the fact that he was absolutely hacked off and his press conference lasted less than a minute. I don't know if you guys heard any of the comments that y'all are both like, yeah, no, we heard it. Did that surprise you at all?
No,
From
because the
Rick
Jets
Bonus?
suck. The Jets were
They
awful.
did suck. They didn't even play that game.
Yeah, they were absolutely terrible.
They actually didn't show up. Like, I mean, we talk about like how Minnesota didn't show up in the last 2 games. The Stars played good in the last 2 games and gave them nothing.
Yeah.
The Jets didn't play game 5.
I don't know that the Knights played their best game at all in the series, and they almost swept them.
They didn't really have to.
The
You're
Jets
right, I
were
guess.
playing absolutely awful.
Well, the thing that was really kind of frustrating to watch was like I never saw Rick Bowness like that as the head coach of the Dallas Stars, and maybe not like that at all. Where he's basically, I mean, it's kind of like how Jim Lights called out Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin all those years ago, calling them their play BS, complete BS or whatever he said. But like he was fired up, he was mad, and I think it's like it's completely logical and it makes sense. At first, I was just like, see, well, there were some people on Twitter that were saying, see, Jets fans, we told you this is Rick Bowness and not taking responsibility for his coaching errors. And I'm like, I don't
That
think
game was
that's
not
coaching
coaching
errors.
error.
I was about to say.
I'm kind of on that because, I mean, his team wasn't ready to play in any of those games, too. And that's something we always complained about for the Stars. They never had good starts. It felt like they were never prepared. I think that's got to be a little bit on the coach. And he had an entire second half of the season to figure it out with them. Like, there was something going on when they dropped out of the first spot, and he couldn't ever figure out what it was. Some of that has to go on the coach a little bit. I agree. Overall, it's the players' deal. And like I said, they sucked. Bones wasn't playing, but he didn't really do anything to stop it from sucking.
But we've heard rumors for years now about the Winnipeg Jets and like the apparent toxicity in that locker room from the core group.
Okay.
So
what did he do to fix it?
I mean,
seems like nothing.
I disagree. I mean, he at least
like
got
he
them in
decaptained Wheeler, and that was it.
Well, I mean, it seemed to be doing well enough because he's returning to Winnipeg again next season.
It didn't
even
work.
Though he made like some of those comments that he made about his own team and about his own franchise and everything like that, for a lot of coaches, that would probably get them fired.
No.
Yeah?
I think the only reason he's staying there is because the team is blowing up. I don't think they're resigning.
Yeah. Okay. So
people.
So who do you think's gone? Do you think like surely Scheifele is gone? I mean Wheeler maybe gone. I don't think Hellebuck's going anywhere, to be honest with you.
I think he is. The comments he made after the game too. I mean, he wants to go somewhere to win. If they give up 2-star players, he might demand a trade.
But I mean, is that the right thing to do with the Winnipeg Jets at this point? And last question on them is just to blow it up and just maybe. I mean, do you rebuild or do you retool or I mean, what do you do?
I mean, we've heard how bad the room is for 3 years now, and nothing has fixed. Nothing changed. Their coach, they had a great coach that left while they were playing good, and he quit because the team was so bad together. So I think if the dressing room is really that bad, there's no retooling or fixing. It's just bad. Got to undo it all.
And I thought that whole series could have gone way differently if in game 3 they don't have that massive comeback in the third period. They were down 4-1, scored 3 to force overtime. And what do they do in overtime? They give it right to the Golden Knights, right in front of their own net, and it goes in the back of the net.
Yeah. And that's exactly what Bones was talking about. I mean, there's no pushback from them, is what he said. They are terrible with adversity. They face adversity and they fold. And that's what they did.
I just hate to see that for Bonus. I know a lot of
I don't.
people didn't like Bonus mostly because of his coaching style, but I mean, he's a great guy, right? He's not like a John Tortorella, right? Where
He sounded like John Tortorella last night.
he did.
That's true.
Or
that was
was it
that's
really
what
last
I
night?
thought.
I don't think it was
Saturday?
last night. No,
Saturday.
it was a
a
few
long
days
time
ago.
ago.
It was this weekend. It was sometime this weekend. But I mean, he is genuinely a nice guy, and everybody, especially players that talk about him, say he's like one of the nicest guys they've ever met. So
Yeah,
I was
what Wheeler
just
said.
surprised. Yeah.
That's exactly what Blake Wheeler said. He said, man, Bones is so nice. I always agree with every decision he makes. That's a direct quote.
All right, moving on. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the other first round series, and we'll save we already talked about the Stars in the Wild, so we'll mention that later. But let's go to Hurricanes Islanders, because there's not as much to talk about here.
That series went exactly how I expected. Not even gonna lie.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly how I expected, even though I did pick the Islanders to win.
I even saw the Islanders up in the third period of that game 6. It was like, oh, the Hurricanes are gonna tie it, push to overtime, and win.
Yep.
Y'all better
That's
put some
exactly
respect on the Canes. Y'all both took Isle.
No, I didn't.
I'm pretty sure you did.
Hurricanes. I took the Hurricanes.
Nah, I did not.
I said if the Islanders faced the Bruins, they would have won, but I took the Hurricanes in 6.
That might be what it was.
Well, there were 3. Well, there could be possibly 3 upsets. Although I don't know if the Rangers win over the Devils, I don't know if you necessarily call that an upset.
The Leafs over the Lightning is an upset, technically, in my opinion.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into that too, because there's not much to talk about with the Canes series. I mean, the Canes are gonna just keep going and they're gonna be fine. But the Maple Leafs finally do it, you guys. They finally do it. For the first time since 2004, they advanced to the second round of the playoffs, and they do win in overtime in Game 6 over the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think no one was more thrilled than Steve Dangle.
That's the best video on Twitter right now.
That was the first thing I did.
That was so good.
That was the first thing that I did, is that I went to YouTube and I tried to find the Sportsnet feed of the game to see how he reacted, and he was just overjoyed, up the wall. It was cool to watch. It was cool to watch, and
it took the Lightning throwing multiple third period leads, 3 third period leads.
Yeah,
and lose all of them in overtime.
And some outstanding goaltending. I mean, the Leafs haven't had goaltending in a decade, and they finally got some good goaltending.
I wouldn't say that it was that great. If you look at
it was way above average. Samsonov was very good.
Stats, then it says otherwise, but they got enough to get out of the first round, which they hadn't gotten for years. So
for me, I think when you look at this particular series, I think the story of it is Andrei Vasilevsky. I don't know if you saw some of the stats.
Atrocious, dude.
He was. I mean, he's got to be fighting something, or maybe
game 5 and 6 he played fine. Honestly, in my opinion, I thought he played good in game 5 and game 6.
But he wasn't. He showed up Vasilevsky. Late. Yeah, he wasn't Andrei Vasilevsky. That's something that like multiple people talked about with that series, is that he just didn't show up the same way he has the last 3 years. Now, whether that's like
you make 3 playoff runs, I mean,
right, and that was the thing I was saying. It's either he's kind of hurt, or he's just not really exhausted. Yeah. So I think it's probably the latter rather than the first thing. But I mean, what do y'all think?
I think that they'll be back next year and they'll probably make another deep run.
Yeah, I mean they've gone 3 years in a row having the shortest offseason possible. I mean, Vasilevsky probably played more games than anybody in the league over that stretch. So it makes sense that he's tired.
So would you consider that an upset?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
an upset. I mean,
You think so? Okay.
the Lightning have made the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row. So that's an upset. Doesn't matter what the standings say.
That's okay. That's fair. That's fair. So the Maple Leafs are also very happy because of the fact of this next series.
Oh my word.
And so in 48 hours, 3 things happened that I was just absolutely surprised about. The Maple Leafs were able to finally get over that hump and get into the second round for the first time since 2004. The best team, the best regular season team in NHL history is no more, you guys. The Panthers took them out in 7 games. It took 7 games, but the Florida Panthers crawled their way back in. They were down 3-1 in the series, and they end up winning the series in overtime off of a bizarre goal in Game 7, but it doesn't matter. So the Bruins and former Dallas Stars head coach Jim Montgomery, they're out. I mean, how shocked were you when I really thought that, that this is the Bruins all the way. They're just going to make it. It's going to go to overtime, but
Well, the first 3 games made it look that way. Like,
true.
it looked like they were just going to run away with that series.
Yeah. And then Matthew Tkachuk slotted into this series and boom, he almost won it by himself. And the bigger thing that I think was the injuries from Boston too. I mean, once you look at the end of the series, they showed that the injuries that they had and the players that were actually out the entire series, it's honestly not surprising, especially with how good Florida was playing down the stretch.
Well, this was another game or another series where I thought like one game with one bad turnover flipped the entire thing on its head. I mean, Game 5, the Bruins forced overtime and had it in overtime, and the goaltender gives it away right in front of the net, goes in automatically, not a chance. And from then, I mean, they had the craziest last 3 games of a series ever. I mean, the Game 6 was like, there was like 3 or 4 lead changes. The game ends 7-5. And then Game 7, the Bruins forced another overtime and still just can't get it done. They just couldn't.
Well, the Panthers forced that last overtime and scored with less than a minute left.
Yeah, it was exactly a minute left, right?
Yeah, it was actually. The Panthers took the early lead. The Bruins scored 3 straight. Then the Panthers scored with 1 minute left to tie it and take the lead again at the end. The series was ridiculous. That was the most exciting one.
For sure.
Well, and here's the biggest question for me out of this series. I mean, I did not understand this decision by Jim Montgomery. And I had some Boston Bruins fans on our podcast Twitter try and explain it to me. And I was still just kind of like, I don't agree with it. What was the decision by Jim Montgomery in Game 7? He goes with Jeremy Swayman, who hadn't played in almost 2 weeks, in Game 7.
Yeah, I don't know.
When you have Linus
I thought that
Ullmark.
was the weirdest decision ever.
And Boston Bruins fans were like, he looked really off in Game 5 and in Game 6, and they've been able to switch back and forth between the two all season. And I'm like,
I heard there was reports that he was playing injured as well, though. So he was playing hurt a little bit on top of that.
But still, the deal is this guy is going to win the Vezina. He is going to win the Vezina. And I mean, when you get to the playoffs, I understand that there are teams that have a tandem and have really good tandems, like Boston, for example, with Ullmark and with Swayman. It's probably one of the best tandems in the NHL. But just to keep things consistent and to keep that synergy going and that chemistry, I feel like you have to take one guy and ride him. And especially if it's a Vezina winner.
Well, you either got to do that or you have to keep doing what you did during the regular season. And they didn't do either. It's
not the same as the playoffs, though, Christian.
No,
you cannot do the same thing in the playoffs. What I'm saying is
they didn't do either. They stayed right in the middle. They tried to ride Ullmark, and then they abandoned it at the last second. I mean, that's the absolute wrong thing to do. If you do something, at least you had the gonads to pick one. But he didn't even do that. He bailed on it last second. I mean, putting in a goalie, even someone who you've been playing all year, like you said, freezing cold into a Game 7, that's stupid. If you were going to do that, you had to do it Game 5. And that's where I think the biggest mistake was. If you want to do that, fine. But don't do it Game 7. That's wrong.
And, I'll respond to this one over here. Joe Mama. Swayman played fine, quit Monday morning quarterbacking, Ryan. I'm not here. I'm not saying at all that
What you're
Swayman was
doing is
being
objectively
bad.
Monday morning quarterbacking, though.
Okay, maybe, but it's not the fact that Swayman played bad. It's the fact that you have the Vesna winner in your tandem, and you don't have the confidence to go with him, or regardless, whatever.
I don't
I don't
understand
care
it
if he's
because
hurt.
so I mean, we saw it in our series too. The Wild used a tandem, and what they do, they put Fleury in game 3 early. They knew, or sorry, it
Put him
was
in game 2.
Game two, even earlier. They knew instantly whether they were going to use him or not. It's you don't leave when you're the best regular season team ever. You should not have to randomly swap everything at the last second and hope that you win, which is what it felt like they did with choosing Swayman over Olmark.
I don't know, but I mean, we could talk about that for a long time. But I just thought it was a really interesting decision by Monty there, and I didn't agree with it. But it looks like the Devils are probably going to win. It's 3-0 right now, gentlemen, in the third period. So looks like they are going to take care of business there. Okay, and then so that's a big series that I don't think anybody predicted going in the favor of the Florida Panthers. I did not. I think I said, I don't think I said 5. I think I said 6, but I don't remember.
This was my sweep series.
This was your sweep series, and boy, were you wrong. Well, and then in the other series, the Colorado Avalanche are no more either, gentlemen. So 2 former Stanley Cup.
That one.
I was not expecting this at all. So the Kraken are the first team in NHL history to win their initial playoff series against the former defending Stanley Cup champions. This is the 4th time in NHL history that this has happened, where a team has gone into their first round series and played against the defending Stanley Cup champions. The Kraken are at the top of the mountain as the only team to ever have won that series. How shocked were you at the outcome of this series? What did y'all think?
I mean, I followed this one pretty closely. It doesn't surprise me as much because of how well the Kraken stayed out of the box for the most part, honestly. I mean, for a lot of those games, they were only giving up 2 or 3 chances to the Avs. And the Avs power play was pretty atrocious too. They even killed off all those too. I mean, the second the special teams just went away for the Avalanche, it was all downhill. I mean, they played that series 5-on-5 just like they wanted to. And that's what I said. I picked the Avs in 6. And then I said, if the Kraken want to win the series, they got to play it 5-on-5. And that's what they did. And they won the series.
They did the exact thing you said. Yeah. And the other thing is they won 3 out of their 4 games by 1 goal. Their first win was by 2 goals. So they were not blowing Colorado out of the water at any point. They were holding on, and they held on long enough. And like James said, they killed the big opportunities when Colorado got them. They kept McKinnon relatively cornered up, and they played a really solid team defensive game for a team that wasn't really known for that during the regular season too, which was really weird.
Yeah. And the 3 goals thing was something that I wanted to chime on. They never won a game that they scored more than 3 goals in. They scored 4 goals in one game, and the 4 games they won, they scored 3 goals 3 times and 2 goals once in the last game. Like, it's purely just holding the Avalanche where they are and giving them nothing.
Which makes no sense.
That and Grubauer just played amazing in that series.
Grubauer was fantastic.
I think there was a little bit of extra intangibles for Philip Grubauer there. You know, former goaltender of the Colorado Avalanche. He was with them when they won. No, he was not with them when he won the Stanley Cup. That was the year before. But still, he obviously probably feels disrespected by them because they let him go.
Maybe not disrespected, because it was in the expansion draft. Like, what are you gonna do? But I mean,
I don't think they took him. I think he signed there as a free agent.
I'm pretty sure he went in the expansion draft.
I don't know. I can't arbitrate. Sorry.
Someone help us out. I mean, Joe Mama, Ardell, someone help us out.
I don't think that was a decision by the Avs to purposely do that. He just knew that it was his former team, and every time you play your former team, you get a little chip on your shoulder. I mean, we see it every time any Stars forward or skater plays against us too. I mean, Klingberg scored a goal in the Wild series. It just happens. It just seems to happen.
He was atrocious the entire series. So defensively, he was terrible.
Yeah, he was bad.
He was very bad.
That's not a shocker though.
But
it's not. No.
You want to hear something that is a shocker? Seattle Kraken, 15th best defense during the regular season, and if you didn't watch the regular season and you didn't see that stat, you would have thought they were the best defensive team in the playoffs.
That's true.
They shut down the Colorado Avalanche, who are a very good offensive team. They were injured, but still, you got to give that credit where it's due.
I mean, also their penalty kill just came out of nowhere. They were ranked 19th in the league in penalty kill, and somehow they're able to hold off the Avs for the whole series and give up like 2 or 3 power play goals.
I think
they went like 90%.
So even lower.
And there was some bizarre stuff coming out of the Colorado team as well. I mean, did you hear the news about Valeri Nichushkin?
Yeah.
Did you
I
hear
don't
about
want to
Nichushkin?
speculate on that, man.
No, I don't want to speculate on that either. But like, I tried to understand, and we're not going to talk about it very much. But like, I tried to understand looking at articles and reading articles, and I'm totally confused. Like he just Houdini'd himself. He's like off the face of the planet. Like no one can find him. I don't know. It's just weird. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and look it up. There's news about it everywhere. So anyways, I think and this will be a good way to get into the Kraken and the Stars series. So 4 series in the second round. We have got the Stars and the Kraken, the Knights and the Oilers, the Maple Leafs and the Panthers, and it looks like it's going to be the Hurricanes and the Devils. We'll give our predictions at another time, or I might just do a graphic and get y'all's ideas on what's going to happen in the second round. But let's dive into this series a little bit, kind of the same way we did with the first round series against the Wild here. And let's talk about the forward groupings for the Seattle Kraken and for the Dallas Stars. All right. So y'all were making fun of me in our group chat in talking about this team, and y'all were all like high and mighty, and we're like, I know y'all were joking. But like that we shouldn't be afraid of the Seattle Kraken. I'm honestly more afraid of the Seattle Kraken because of how similar they are to the Dallas Stars in the way that they roll 4 lines with their forward group. So
except our lines are way better. I mean, objectively, they are.
James, let him cook.
All of our players are more skilled.
James, let him cook.
So yeah, here's what I'm talking about. So with the Wild, we were able to shut down their top players, and their bottom 6 just don't score. That's just how the team played, and they just bullied you to a pulp, and that's how they won their game. That's their style. Seattle Kraken and the way that they play is very similar to the way that the Stars play. So, and I think throughout the lineup, defensively and offensively. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Stars react to a team that plays very similar to them, because they do just like the Stars. They roll through all 4 lines. And the other thing that's this may be silly to some of y'all, but they don't really have like a quote unquote superstar player, right? We have a Robo.
Not anymore.
We have a Hintz. Okay. I would consider those superstar players. For the Kraken, they've got Jared McCann, who scored 40 goals. That's about it. Well, okay. They don't. Okay. But
They don't.
But you understand, like he may or may not be in the series, but you understand what I'm saying. They have very good like contributions from the offense from all lines, and it's kind of all the way throughout the lineup. And I think that is what Seattle has something better over the Dallas Stars, is they've got more balanced offense through their 4 lines. I think we have it good as well. I really do think that, but I don't know. What do you think?
I agree with the rolling 4 lines thing. They do that very similar to the Stars. I'm going to make the point that James was making. The offensive potential that the Stars have is just far superior, in my opinion. And the depth players that we have are more role players than they are on the Kraken. you look at our fourth line, and those guys have specific roles. Foxa and Glendening are winning faceoffs, and they are penalty kill specialists. And that really sets us apart, especially on the special teams side against the Kraken, is that we have players that have roles. So these guys are all very good and very well-rounded players. It doesn't feel like they have the specific roles that the Stars do. And I think that gives us a huge advantage in the forward group.
Yeah. The way the Kraken won the first round series is by playing 5-on-5. And if they play 5-on-5 versus the Stars, I don't know that they're going to win. I mean, it worked because the Avs have a beat up team. They essentially had one line. And honestly, again, if they didn't play 5-on-5, they could have gotten beat up by that one line. But I mean, going into a series against a full team on the other side too. I mean, both of these teams are relatively healthy. It's going to be really tough for them to play the same way. And if they get in penalty trouble at all, I mean, that series is going the Stars' way without a doubt. I mean, they kill them on both sides on special teams.
We already mentioned special teams twice, so I'll just give you the stats there. We already mentioned a little bit. Penalty kill during the regular season, Seattle Kraken was 21st, and in power play, they were also 21st. So if this game gets penalties in it, the Stars are going to be dominating that. Stars are top 5 in both categories.
The other thing I'll point out is that in the season series between the Kraken and the Stars obliterated their penalty kill. I mean, it wasn't even close. It felt like we scored on every single one.
Yeah. And the Kraken are going to be coming off a series where they don't have much time to prepare for the Stars power play. So we'll see what their coaches can do.
So the thing about Seattle is that some of the deficiencies that they seem to have in the regular season, they were able to take care of those in the playoffs. And that's where they were able to kind of force their way to have Colorado lose the series. I mean, their goaltending got tremendously better. We've talked about it for a couple of years now with Philip Grubauer, that he's been rough, and he was excellent in that series against the Colorado Avalanche, especially in Game 7. I mean, I watched that game at the Airbnb where we were staying, and I was just like, wow, like I have not seen him play like this in several years. So if he can play any sort of similarity to that against the Stars, then he gives them a chance to beat the Stars. Now, let me give you guys the odds. This is from The Athletic about how the series will go and what they think. So the odds for the Stars, it's believed that the best way for the Kraken to possibly win this series is to win it in 7, which makes sense, obviously. The Stars are very much the heavy favorite in this series. There's a 14% chance they finish it in 4, 24-5, 19-6, and 18-7. And that's all significantly higher than any of the percentages that the Seattle Kraken have of winning the series. There's a 2% chance that the Kraken win the series in 4. 5% in 5 games, 8% in 6 games, and 9% in 7 games. So if you take all those numbers, you add them all together, the Stars have a 76% chance of winning the series, according to the numbers that Dom Lucian and some of the others have put together. And the Seattle Kraken have a 24% chance.
That was a lot of numbers.
It was a lot of numbers. And
I'm glad you said them fast.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to get through them. The thing is that this article has even more. It's ridiculous. So if you want to go look at the numbers, go look at the numbers. But the deal with the Stars is, and what I'm going to be curious about is, and this is why I bring up the numbers, is they are heavy favorites in this series compared to the Minnesota Wild series. It was neck and neck, I feel like, with a lot of people. More people were leaning towards the Stars. Yes, they were. But there were still a lot of people that are saying, I don't know, maybe Minnesota can get in there. And now more people are saying, okay, Seattle doesn't seem to have a chance against this Dallas Stars team. But they proved in their first round series against the Colorado Avalanche, nobody gave them a chance against Colorado. Nobody. 0. I think it was like most of the polls I saw, most people were saying, oh, well, Colorado's going to win the series. Like 95% of people were saying that. 90 and above. So that will be interesting to see how that goes for the Stars and how they handle that sort of pressure, because, I mean, they really are the overwhelmingly heavy favorites.
I think for the Stars to win this series, they're gonna have to be really good on the power play. They're gonna have to score power play goals. If the Kraken are able to shut down the power play like they shut down the Avs power play, then we might truly be in trouble. But if you score any amount on the power play and you play solid 5-on-5, because that's what they're gonna do too. You just play solid 5-on-5. I think this is a team where matching their play 5-on-5 is not necessarily a bad thing, because I mean they play hard defense and they don't play as heavy a style as Minnesota Wild. So you're not gonna get mega forechecked and just nailed and drilled into the boards every time you touch the puck.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, Ryan, with that's kind of maybe the X factor, but I still feel like the Stars were heavy favorites in the first series too. I mean, if you dug into the numbers just a little bit on Stars versus Wild, the Stars should have won that series easily. And in the end, they kind of did. The only reason it wasn't a 5-1 was because of a lucky bounce in an overtime. So I think the Stars are more than capable of handling that pressure, which I don't think is pressure. I think it's get the job done. And then you also got to think about the part that you mentioned. This team and the core of this team has been through every scenario in the playoffs. They've been through losses. They've been through successes. They have the playoff experience. So I don't think anyone's going to be underestimating this team or counting this series as in the bank already. I think if anything, it'll be the opposite. They'll give them too much credit.
I want to talk about the roster for the Stars, because Joe Pavelski has been told he's going to be playing in Game 1, and they've let that known.
Yeah, Joe Pavelski was told. He didn't tell them for sure.
No, well, I mean, he has to go through protocol and stuff like that. But anyways, we saw in line rushes today that he was actually not on the top line in line rushes. He was actually out there with Domi and Marchment, and Sagan stayed on that top line. I don't think that that's going to stay that way for very long, especially if the Stars struggle.
It might, but it's hard to take a player who scored 5 goals in the first series off of the top line. I mean, that's tough.
Yeah, but and let's not act like this is unprecedented. The exact same thing happened earlier in the season with Hintz. I mean, when Hintz was injured, Sagan was playing really well on the top line. We're like, all right, we're going to leave Sagan up there until it doesn't work. It stops working. Hintz is right back to the top line, and here we are, off to the races again. So either solution is fine, and you're just going to keep riding Sagan until it stops working, and then you're going to go back. So I don't think it's a bad thing. And I think, honestly, Pavelski with Marchment and Domi could kind of sneakily be a really good option, because you have the two big, fast guys that like to throw their weight around. You got a really smart guy who is always in the right position. I think it could be really, really beneficial. And if it's not, switch it after the first period.
That's true. My only thing, and this is exactly what I was thinking, Eric over here, Robo needs Pavs.
I don't think he does.
I
really don't think he does.
I don't think we've seen full supers. And again, sounds like I'm getting on to Robo, but I'm not. I don't feel like we've seen superstar Robertson yet in the playoffs. And I think with Pavelski being out, it shows that Robertson really relies on Pavelski more than I think we realize.
I don't think he does.
If we can
I just think you're wrong.
I think we need Pavelski to get Robertson going. And I think that's a thing. And I'm with you guys. I don't think either way it's going to be bad. I think either way it's going to be fine. And if one way doesn't work, then go back to the other way. And it'll both ways seem to work. But I really think that you still start with Pavelski on the top line, because Robertson really needs him. The
idea that Robertson is struggling is just not true. I mean, he had the second most points on our team. He had 7 points for the Stars.
He's doing the same thing he did all season long, which is he would score for a lot in a certain amount of games, and then the next couple of games he would not score, but he would still pick up a bunch of assists, and he kept picking up points and assists. And then he goes back and he scores more again, and then he goes back to getting a lot of assists. He switches back and forth. This isn't a new thing. We've seen it the whole season long. He's eventually going to start scoring again, and he's going to score tons in the next 5 games, and it's going to go away again.
And we also talked about how Minnesota was the team that matched up best against specifically Jason Robertson too. I mean, Jason Robertson does not like the physical style. That is probably the exact opposite of his game, and we actually saw him make a big hit in this series even. So he was pretty far out of his comfort zone there. Seattle is not. I mean, despite the Eberle hit, that is not how they play. They are not going to play a physical, hard-hitting style. Like
They
you
still
said,
can
play
do
a
it
lot more
though.
similar to the start. They can
They
do
still
it, but
can do it.
if they come out with that game plan, that would be shocking, especially considering just what the Stars did to Minnesota, who was the most physical team of the playoffs.
So
That's the
how do you?
whole league, honestly.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, whole playoffs.
I was going to ask a different question, but how do you think they're going to come out game one against the Dallas Stars? Do you think they're going to be a more balanced approach and look, or just really focus on the defensive side and look for opportunities to counterattack? Because I think that's the way the Stars kind of leaned into, especially in game 5. And they really figured out, okay, this really works. We can play this style. And in game 6, they would just, there's no chance for Minnesota.
Not saying this to try and be mean. The only way that Seattle Kraken can beat the Stars is if they play like they did in game 7 against the Avs. They're going to win games 2-1, 3-2. They have to give the Stars nothing, take no penalties, and Grubauer has to be fantastic.
And we have to hit 3 posts.
And we have to hit 3
Don't let Bjorkstrand touch the puck. I mean, seriously, the guy, didn't he's the one that hit all 3 posts, right? Yeah, at least hit 2.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, we joked about how the Stars should blow out this team. They should. And you look at every stat, even during the playoffs, even to those stats, you take away the incredible special teams advantage that the Stars have. They still have a crazy advantage on the top line, on the second line, and then you go down to the fourth line, where that is the biggest advantage of the Seattle Kraken, is their depth probably. And the Stars are equally as deep as the Seattle Kraken. If there's any team that is just as deep as Seattle, it's the Dallas Stars. So that's taking away their advantage right there. The only thing that I think that Seattle has on the Dallas Stars 5-on-5 would be their play against our bottom 2 defensemen. I think Pete DeBoer did an exceptional job of protecting those 2 guys in series against Minnesota, not giving them the ice time against their best players, making sure Miro was out there against Johansson and against Kaprizov most of the time. Because if you look at the advanced stats, the bottom 2 guys for the Stars are tops in advanced stats across the board, which how does that make sense? It's because they played against the bad players. They played against the AHL guys that Minnesota was sticking out there. So I think that was coaching that really came down to that. And you're not going to be able to do that against Seattle. That fourth line can score and will.
What I am worried about with this series, though, you guys, with the forwards when it comes to scoring is the special teams, and not necessarily the special teams in general. What if the power play starts to dry up? Because we've mentioned it before. It's been streaky all year. And then
that's just the
series against hold on.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Okay.
In this series against the Minnesota Wild, they had a hard time scoring 5-on-5. I mean, that's it happened. They scored more goals on the power play than they did 5-on-5. And that's something that Seattle has been very good about in the regular season and in that series against Colorado, is they were very good 5-on-5 and making sure that they dominated 5-on. Maybe dominate is the wrong word, but they were very good 5-on-5. So that's just an area of concern for me.
What if Otter lets in 4 goals a game?
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. I mean, the Stars have to be good on the power play. I mean, and they are. They are objectively better than the Seattle Kraken on the power play. That's one of your points that you're going to win at. If you completely fall off on one of your biggest strengths, of course, that's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, and that's what I really thought was a big deal with the Kraken Avs series. I mean, the Avalanche's power play just fell off a cliff.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. You're absolutely not wrong. Okay, let's move on really quickly because we're already running out of time here. Let's talk about the defensemen. Guys, there is another former Dallas Stars defenseman on the other side. Round 1 was John Klingberg. It was a KO for the Stars. This one might be a little harder because this guy is 6'7". Mr. Jamie Alexiak is going to be playing against the Dallas Stars. And based off of what I read, I went and looked at several different blog posts, articles on The Athletic, local articles there in Seattle. They have loved and adored Jamie Alexiak, and especially in the last 2 games of the series, he played exceptionally well, and they could not stop talking about how well he played in that series. So
that's because he's a good player.
Yes, and he's exceptional. But what I did point out on Twitter, and I said, last time the Stars faced against a former Dallas Stars, we all saw how that went. So I'm kind of hoping for the same outcome here against the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, my biggest thing with the Seattle decor is the exact same thing that I talked about with their forwards. I mean, it looks like they have 6 second pair defensemen. So that's great for their bottom pair, but for their top pair that's going to have to play against the Stars' best line, I mean, Adam Larson and Vince Dunn. I mean, if I'm Rope Hance, I'm licking my chops, honestly. I don't think that they are going to be good enough to shut those guys down, honestly.
Adam Larson is very good defensively, but Vince Dunn had a remarkable offensive season for the Seattle Kraken. I think he had like 70 or 80 points, something like that.
Just those guys as your top pair, it doesn't look like a top pair, in my opinion. It really doesn't.
I don't know. Just gotta be careful. Obviously, the Stars had the better defense, in my opinion. I mean, if you put Miro on one side and then the Seattle defense on the other side, and you just do it based off of that, Miro versus the other 6, easily, Dallas still wins that.
I'll argue in favor of Seattle on that one there. I mean, you look at Carson Soucy and Justin Schultz, and you compare that to Harley Hanley. I'm going to take Soucy and Schultz every time, too, though. I mean, that's a very good bottom pair.
I don't know, based off of the way that, not necessarily Hanley, but how Harley has played since he's been called up from the Texas Stars. I don't know. He's been pretty solid.
Remember, those are very protected minutes. I mean, Pete DeBoer was very good at making sure that they were not in bad situations.
I don't know if Dave Haxtell, the head coach for the Kraken, does the same thing with his bottom pairing either, with Schultz and Soucy. Sorry, his name escaped me. But anyways, let's take a look at goaltending. Obviously, this is easy for us to say. Who has the advantage in this category?
I mean, we're going to say Otter for sure, but you can't discount what Grubauer did in the last 2 games that they played.
If
he was fantastic.
If he stays hot, it's going to be a tough series.
Yeah, it totally could turn into a goalie duel.
And that was the thing in the article, the Athletic article that they did, was the X factor is what they called it. The question is Philip Grubauer back? And if you looked at the last 2 games of the series against the Avs, you could say yes. But like I mentioned, he had that extra motivation against the Avalanche. He didn't necessarily have that same. And people say, "Oh, well, that's not a big deal." It makes a difference. It really does.
It does make a difference.
There's a motivational tactic used in that.
We're definitely gonna see if it really was he had a chip on his shoulder playing his old club, or if he's just truly back. I mean, that's what we're gonna find out game 1.
Yeah. And either way, looking at it, I think Grubauer has to be fantastic, and even yet, Otter might still be better than him. I mean, I think Otter's best play is going to be better than Grubauer's best play. And Otter obviously looks fantastic. The last 3 games, he's been unbeatable. And Grubauer was still getting goal scored. I mean, Otter almost had 2 shutouts in a row to close out the series. So I'm never going to count against Otter, especially in big games like this.
I really think that he is the X factor. Like, I know they talked about Philip Grubauer. If Philip Grubauer can get somewhere close to give his team an opportunity, I don't even think it matters if Ottinger is on his game.
The biggest thing about this series to me is that everyone on the Kraken has to play amazing, and the Stars have to play not amazing.
Which is play good.
which is not going to happen. I mean, I just don't see it happening. It's going to take some absolutely outstanding play from the Kraken for us to lose this series, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially with how healthy we are right now is the number one thing. I mean, if the Stars were injured the same way the Avalanche were, obviously I'm a little bit more scared about it. But we have everybody now. The only issue we have is Pavs is coming back from an extended break, and we're worried about concussions, which shouldn't really affect his speed and skating, which he already didn't have a lot of anyway. But I mean, it's just scary.
How dare you? That's Joe Pavelski. No, I'm just kidding.
It's just scary injury to have. But I mean, a fully healthy Dallas Stars, if you compare them with any statistic, the Stars beat them.
Okay, last question. Well, last 2 questions, but last serious question. What's the outcome in this series? What's your prediction?
I mean, this is going to sound way overly
Homie.
confident. It's Stars in 5. If you look at every stat, the Stars were fantastic. Seattle played very well against the Colorado Avalanche. I don't think they played fantastic, honestly, but they played extremely well, and they barely scraped by. And they were missing a whole line and another forward. So I don't even feel like the Kraken are heading into this series rolling. It doesn't feel like. It feels like they slid by.
Survived,
So
yeah.
I'm saying it's Dallas Stars in 5. This is, we talked about last series. The series you have to win. You got to win this series, man.
Yeah. And I think right off the bat, game 1 is going to be super awkward because there's no history here between these two teams, especially with playoffs. And you
They've played
don't
6
really know
games
how
against each other.
right, like Seattle had a thing against the Avs because they've had a little bit of history, and the Stars had a lot of history with Minnesota, obviously. But this might be an awkward series to begin with, and it may take a couple of games before we start to see that intensity that we saw in the first round. That's just a side thing.
I think game 1 is a trap game for the Stars, though. I mean,
that I was worried about that too, actually. Yes.
Yeah, so let's just get into that. They just played last night. I mean, they are still fully in survival mode, I would say, and the Stars have been chilling for a little bit, so they might be a little bit off of it. So as long as the Stars get back into the mentality that they had in games 5 and 6 of the Minnesota Wild series, where they're playing desperate hockey and winning every puck battle, you got to get back into that mindset and attack it straight on. If we win the first 2 games of this series and we take both home ice games, I mean,
I feel good about the series. Yes,
I feel good about the series. That's the right way to say it. Thank you, Ryan.
We're gonna know instantly after game 1 whether this series is gonna be over in 5 or it's gonna take 7. I mean, this isn't gonna be a series that's gonna sneak up on you and surprise you. After the first game, you'll know where it's heading.
I agree.
All right, so that was Amanda.
Cameo.
Yeah, cameo Amanda hanging out. She's eating guacamole, by the way. I really want some. So I might have to steal some a little bit. James, what's your prediction, though? Give us your prediction.
I'll say Stars in 6 out of fear that we might just drop 2 because of Grubauer.
I'm going to say Stars in 6 as well, just because I'm afraid that they're going to have enough fight in them, and especially Grubauer will do something. And I'm scared of Oliver Bjorkstrand right now. I mean, the guy is playing like a bat out of Hades right now. I don't know if you watched him in Game 7. He was absolutely ridiculous.
I watched the game. I feel like you're just getting lucky. The puck was just following him the whole game long. I don't even feel like he was doing anything exceptional.
But who cares?
True.
I mean, he's on a heater. He's on a heater. We just got to move him off of it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Anything else we need to mention? Oh, I guess I said Stars in 6 here. Okay. Anything else?
I just wanted to thank Ardell again for sending me and my dad to Game 5. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That's the first playoff game that I've gone to that the Stars actually won. So
yeah, thanks, Ardell. Everyone give Ardell our thanks.
Yeah, so wait, why did we send you in the first place, James? Maybe you were
that was not a good decision.
I'm
glad we broke that first
this time, and I think it worked.
There you go.
Okay, that's fair. All right.
Right, Beanie.
All right, guys. For those of you that are listening live with us right now, 16 of y'all in the chat over there, we appreciate y'all listening live with us. The New Jersey Devils do end up winning the game, gentlemen. I think it was 4-0. Is that the final?
3 for 8.
Oh man, that's bad. But anyways, so the Devils do go. They're gonna play against the Hurricanes. That will be an interesting series. I'm rooting for the Canes in that one. But also, for those of you that are listening afterwards, we appreciate y'all. Please consider leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz. And as always, we thank our sponsors, Raycon and DraftKings Sportsbook, for being our sponsor. Use that promo code THPN for both of those entities. And again, we appreciate them very much. Along with Chris and along with James, my name is Ryan. We will catch you guys on the flip side, and we hope to see you guys tomorrow night. Round 2 starts. And We hope you guys have a good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever y'all are listening. And yeah, see you guys tomorrow. Go Stars.